Try This at Home is an AxFi Entertainment Group production, filmed on the mall in Kalamazoo, Michigan, at Public Media Network Studios in the Epic Center.
Try This at Home. I'm here with Damien, Michael, fellas. What are we about to dive into?
Good to be back
today.
We're going to talk about microphones today, actually.
Okay.
So we've been a little off point as far as our outline goes. We decided, you know what? We're more professional than that. We can do this better. We are audio engineers and musicians in this room.
It's for you, America.
We're going to start off today with talking about microphones, what kind of microphones there are, microphone placement, and frequency response. We don't get everything
the boys
today.
in this room hotter right now. They don't even know.
Are you full yet?
Oh, wait a minute. They're listening to me. Guys are on to us.
Yeah.
You full of yourself yet?
We're getting there. We're getting there.
And we're going to talk a little bit about frequency response, too, and then hopefully show you some visual examples of that, as well as some live examples of how these mics sound differently and how you'd want to place them. So to get us started off, we're going to start talking about what types of microphones are there. And to kick those off, we're going to start with an omnidirectional microphone. Michael, can you tell me about an omnidirectional microphone and what that is?
I can, and I even
he's
have
got
an example. These are pretty cool mics. These are the newer...
Hold that up for us, would you?
Yeah, these are the newer pencil
A little further
mics.
down.
Which camera? This guy?
Yeah, that's the guy.
No, that's not
No, it's not the guy. It's that guy.
That's my guy. Hey, what's going on, guy?
There you go.
Yeah, these are actually not anything too impressive, or at least they shouldn't be, because they were only $100 for a pair of them. I believe that they're supposed to be something called an AKG 414 knockoff, I believe.
AKG is a brand.
And it's a brand,
microphone.
and it's also a type of cardioid that also has an omnidirectional. I think it's got an omnidirectional option on it, but that's not the case with these. These are a pretty good. If they're knockoff, they're a pretty damn good knockoff. I like them a lot. I got a lot of good use out of them, and they sound pretty good. But what these do is they have multiple different directional polarities. And one of them, of course, is omnidirectional. And what we do...
Three, my lord.
Here we go.
My lord.
We have to actually replace the diaphragm with these.
So you screw that on and off like you're doing here.
Yeah, and if you look at the top of it, it'll actually show you like the shape of the polarity pattern. And with Omni, it's just a circle, because Omni means it picks up very well in all directions whenever you're using this. So if we were to plug this in, you would be able to hear pretty much everybody in this room, especially if we had the preamp turned nice and high. You'd be able to hear them no matter where they're standing in the room, no matter where this thing's pointed.
Case use. Go. You get the call. What kind of job were you asked? And you're like,
I need to bring these omnidirectional microphones.
That's the mic I want.
Well, off the top of my head, I really like to put at least one or two in a room when I'm miking a band for like live to two track, or even if I'm doing like guitar. Anytime I'm miking a live instrument and it's in a nice sounding room, I love to put one of these just somewhere in the room to pick up the room itself. That way you have one fader that's just kind of like your room reverb of that sound. And it also is, in practice, in a lot of studios that I've ever used this in, this is your mid-range for the whole mix. Like if you need to pull the mid-range up or attenuate it a little bit, you got a fader for that with a mic.
It is also the cause for very inexperienced audio engineers mud.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
There goes your secret tip.
Which hopefully by watching this show, they're going to figure out how how to get that out because we do have segments coming on signal flow and
Equalization,
miking.
proper compression.
Exactly.
But we want to start. We'll get into.
We thought microphones was a great start because that's the first place that a lot of people are going to think about it because the first thing you need to consider when you're engineering sound is how you're going to pick it up.
Right, and more importantly than the mic you've got is where you put it, right?
Correct.
So that's what we want.
And I'm going to start off and try this at home staying. What is the best microphone that you can use? And my answer is the one that's available to you.
Whichever one is the best one to use.
The tool for the job. Yeah.
What's
the
It
tool
doesn't
for the
necessarily
job,
need to be an expensive one. Like I said, these are
Right.
very inexpensive. And I've gotten a lot of good use out of these. I also have some more expensive mics, and sometimes they sound great.
So
Sometimes
these
they
are
sound
by
like
a
garbage.
brand, is it Newer or Newar?
Newer, I don't know.
Yeah. So this was you can find these relatively inexpensively.
Yeah,
and
they're online.
if there are brands of microphone manufacturers that are watching our show, we would love to feature some of their products in the future.
There you go.
Guns.
Pew, pew, pew.
Guns.
So that's an example of an omnidirectional mic and how you would.
There's 3 examples we can get out of this one mic alone.
Okay. Yeah, so leave that out.
So, all right.
So we're going to move right on. Trevor, can you tell me about some cardioid microphones?
Well, so I'm thinking really, so there's 4 groups of polar pattern, right? That really are derivatives of the exact same. So if we call the cardioid the root, the original, right? You've got a subcardioid, you've got a cardioid, you've got a supercardioid, and you've got a hypercardioid. Really, what we're looking at, and I've got
This is a cardioid, by the way. I got the cardioid diaphragm on there.
oh, damn, but we're gonna pull out the Bluebird because let it sing.
Oh, you brought it out.
Let it sing. Of course I did. So
I tried to get you to
the
bring
low
this to a
bar?
session. You were like, nah.
Oh, man,
So
you took that down, huh?
This beautiful thing, this is my camera, right? A Bluebird, shout out, is a hypercardioid pattern, right? So if you think of that Omni, right, and you can kind of see it when it's just a full ball, right? You imagine we've got this 360-degree sphere, right? We're working in 3D space. If that's Omni. When we go cardioid, in general, what we've done is we're trying to reject sound from the back. So if this mic were plugged in, right, and I had it turned like this, it would be picking up similar to this.
Very well. Yeah,
That's
it'd
a
pick you up
50
real
here.
good from there.
But if I were to turn it just exactly opposite on this axis, I could basically talk full volume. And really, though, I would be heard, the mic isn't actually picking up my voice. What it actually is picking up is my voice reflecting off of
Yeah,
these
it's
walls
rejecting you in that area.
and coming back to, I'm actually specifically being rejected out here. So right with when we have the 4 different variations, what we've done, if you can imagine our sphere and that we flattened it on the back end. So instead of being completely curved back here, we threw a flat wall. Now, when we go to our different types of cardioids, here's what we've done. So a subcardioid, we've kind of flexed, convexed that back edge back out a bit. It's still not fully round, but we just added a little bit of curvature. It is picking up a little bit deeper in the back. If we are standard cardioid, we've got that perfect little, I call it the butt cheeks. If you see it, if you see the polar pattern, you've got this smooth pattern, then it's got these butt cheeks on the back of it, right?
Yeah.
So we put this
Like
specific
this.
point of rejection.
So
See if we can get a picture of that. You can see the polar pattern for the cardioid here.
So yeah,
it's on this right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. This
Well,
one
we're not
doesn't have
getting
the
that.
polar pattern on there, but so you got your cardioid butt cheeks.
Well, we'll put in some examples in post for what those
That is
are.
supercardioid.
Right. Yeah.
Hold
So
on.
super, right? Super is actually ironic. Super, you can almost think of it like a bi-directional in a way,
Almost.
except that one side has a very big field of pickup, right? And then we have a very, very small, but it is a small little bubble coming out the other side. It's like somebody who worked out one glute and not the other, not the
So,
booty you want to be led next to.
When you're referring to polar patterns, for people who are complete novices, what are you talking about?
Yeah, we should have explained
Yeah,
that.
no, that's right. So a polar pattern, we want to think of X, Y, Z axes, right? We're going to math
So a
class.
three-dimensional.
Yep, because we've got, right, if this is the interface, I've got an X axis that goes across, I've got a Y axis that goes up and down, and I've got a Z axis of depth that goes in and out. So my polar pattern is a 3D sphere of how my microphone, my transducer, is able to pick up vibrations in the air. Right. If I've got an Omni mic, it's literally just resonating from every sound wave bouncing
And
off of everything.
When you're referring to this specifically sculpting out the back end of that. That's what you're talking about. It's designed specifically to not pick up the vibrations from that end of it.
Exactly.
So that way, the only time it picks you up when you're behind it is because it picks up the patterns of how sound travels as it reflects across surfaces in the room you're in.
Correct, right? So, and that is what we call reverb, right? It's
Yep.
sound reflection. So, a great way to think about it, and the way I've heard it defined, and this is loose definition, but it works. I think it's anything either less than 10 or 25 milliseconds is reverb, right? Because the reflections, the reflections are happening so close together, the ear cannot detect distinct transients. Anything about 25 or whatever and above is what we call delay, because your ear can actually hear the original source and distinctly hear the transient happen again. We're in a small little, this may be a 9x9 space, right, for this room. So speed of sound traveling well over 700 miles an hour, this sound is, but if I'm directly behind this axis on a cardioid, right, it actually is it's designed, the mechanical construct of the transducer is rejecting all vibration from this side, but it can't reject all my reflections off the walls and then come back.
That's
and
getting
penetrate
picked
back
up,
into it,
right.
So you still hear them that way.
We can actually demonstrate with this one as far as cardioid goes.
Oh, well,
Because this is a directional mic, so when I'm up on this is when they say we're on axis. This means you're right on there. Notice how my voice gets all this extra low boom end. If you look at any sort of frequency response chart, which will show you one of those.
A small chest.
We'll show you a frequency response chart later, but you're going to notice that there's like this correlation between certain frequencies, especially the low end, and the position, how close you are to the mic. So obviously, the closer you are, the more low end you get. That's the proximity effect, folks.
You over here pushing off into things.
All right,
So
now, speaking of pushing off, let me push off.
away the kingdom's secrets.
Let me push off this mic, and then you'll notice that there's a lot of low end dropping from me. You can still hear me, but then as I get back, I'm starting to be, it's very washed in the rest of the room.
Yeah.
Now let's get just a little bit closer, not too far on axis, but a little bit, closer where it's picking me up well. Now I'm just going to move around this mic, and notice as I'm doing that, it's starting to reject me, and now I'm back here, and you can't. Even though I'm right up on the mic.
Poop emojis coming.
It's rejecting me. There's a lot of rejection back there, less rejection, back on axis, baby.
So yeah, I mean that is our cardioid function. Now when we get to the subcardioid, right, it gets a little bit more picked up close to the back end of it. If you get supercardioid, you can get a little bit more direct on axis rear, a little bit more distance. It'll still pick up decently strong. Yeah. And then our hypercardioid, it actually, if you want to think about it, super and hyper both share 45-degree angles. But on the supercardioid, it doesn't really so much reject at those angles. It just attenuates stronger dead center. And you can kind of see this mechanical pattern, whereas a hypercardioid, it is actually now, instead of rejecting off the 0-degree axis off the rear, it's rejecting at our 45-degree angles and picking up this very narrow but long bit of room, right? So if you kind of record into, hypercardioids are great for if you've got a sound shield, right? You're recording in your studio, your vocal booth, but you got a sound shield. It's gonna give you the effect of a room, of a space, right? The distance between the rear of the microphone and your sound shield, while still rejecting on the sides, which is your normal excess balance of room space, getting too much more room, and then pick up very bright and clear your vocalist, whoever's coming front and center, right? So we've got our, that's our,
I gotta chop it out.
Yep.
Drop the F-bomb.
Oh, I can't do no emojis for that one, bro.
Oh, my bad.
Do the bomb emoji. But yeah, so that right there, that really kind of takes all of our cardioid, that's the whole family of cardioids. Subcardioid, cardioid, supercardioid, hypercardioid.
I want to say one more thing about supercardioid, though, is if you can zoom in, I don't know if you can, but if you can zoom in and see that little icon there that shows the polarity pattern. And as he mentioned, it's almost like a bidirectional one. A bidirectional mic, their polar pattern would just be a figure 8. And this one's kind of like that, but not quite.
I think you need to turn it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That way? We got it? We got it?
No, a little more.
How about now?
There you go. That's
all right. Now, yeah, you'll see it's almost a figure 8, but not quite. And what this top fatter part is showing you the polarity here, and this is showing you the polarity there. But the thing about supercardioid is, as you heard before, when I get over here, it's rejecting me a lot. This guy rejects you even more. It almost kind of acts like a shotgun mic, a low bar mic, which is a perfect segue to the next thing.
Yeah, so since you're already on that,
so
why don't we, that was our next portion, because we were going to go through, my next segment on notes was cardioid, supercardioid. which we've already covered.
Yeah.
So let's go on to that low bar shotgun mic.
All right.
Trevor's got an example of that.
all seen these boys.
Yep.
I'm in business and I'm dangerous.
So a practical use of this,
Ooh.
if you're recording sound, where do you use this this low bar shotgun mic?
Where's all my sound for video people's at? This is standard use everywhere on your film sets across America, your favorite Hollywood videos you love watching. Right, we're shotgunning. We've got boom arms going everywhere. Audio guys who are training out, working out, holding poles like this for 17 hours for your favorite shots. We can make it happen.
Yeah.
But we got our shotgun mic, right? We want this because we want to be as sniper focused as possible from an audio
Very
perspective.
dynamic mic.
Right. I want to reject everything that isn't down the line of sight of my barrel. Lucky
Down the line of sight.
punk.
So you just want to pick up sound coming where that barrel is at.
And
Really,
really
not just pick it up well and
But
focus.
so
Yes.
truly, we want to look at this down, right? This is by design how we're doing this. This is a Movo. Let's go. The VXR 100L. But so what we're doing, all these actual vents on the side, and the most important one being this air gap right here, are what gives it its negating effects. And I'm gonna mess up the math on this, but essentially there's a certain way where there's the sound entering through here. And there are certain frequencies that enter because of the specific spacing that these slots are from the front of the capsule. That is intentionally masking frequencies, and those frequencies being those coming from the side. That's
They don't
how
quite
it
mask
rejects so
them.
well.
They actually cancel out on the back
thank
end of
you.
the diaphragm.
That's the better one of it. And then so
Here's a
now
good example, too.
that allows it to focus really close on the front of it, on the front side of that low bar.
Yeah. In a similar fashion, this is like that, not nearly as focused as the shotgun mic.
That's the hand grenade mic.
Yeah.
Hold that up.
These are good old trusty dusty SM58s made by Shure. They're one of the most popular mics. You're going to see them all the time on live stages. If you've seen pretty much any sound, comedy show, whatever, they usually
Or
have.
if you're going to karaoke, there's probably a similar mic.
They're pretty
that-
cheap. They're usually around about $100.
Ooh, someone's
is
got
this?
the 55, is it?
Oh,
Is this? So are we looking
we'll
at
get to that in a
the
minute.
generational change? Is that,
Yeah,
is that
pretty
right?
much.
Yeah.
So these are very durable. They're made to where you can drop them on the ground, though
They'll still
don't do
work.
that.
Yeah, but don't.
But they are very durable in that sense. They are also dynamic, just like that shotgun mic, not nearly as focused down the line of sight like that shotgun mic does. So they do have a lot of rejection back here. That is. One thing about it is you'll notice that a lot of these have these holes on the top, as they should. A lot of people like to do this because it looks cool, but it
But don't.
pretty much turns this into a bad-sounding Omni
Yes.
when you do that. Because, as you mentioned before, those holes are back there in order to allow sound and air to come back here so that certain frequencies can cancel themselves out on the back end of this diaphragm. And when
So-
you do that, it doesn't do that anymore.
Amateur vocalists.
And that's why
or vocalists who are just getting started and they want
take
to
note.
learn more.
All
take
you
note of
heavy
that
metal guys,
specifically.
take note. You know who I'm talking to right now. You know who you are.
Yes.
Stop doing this. I know it looks cool, but it sounds like and that's why all of a sudden everything goes. It's your fault, okay? Stop doing that.
I don't appreciate
This is how
that.
you hold a
Temporary
microphone.
Speaking of
feedback.
telling people to stop doing things, stop putting work for us in post by swearing.
Yeah, see, and you guys thought it was always going to be
One
me.
last
I'm an
thing on
angel.
those.
You've heard it here
They
first.
make a very similar version of that. This is the SM58. This is the SM57. They're both about the same price. They're both virtually the exact, not the exact same, but they're very similar puller patterns, very similar frequency responses. And
But
this
why
one's just a little
is
bit
there
more.
different frequency response?
Well, this one is just ever so slightly more brighter in the high end. So it's really good for picking. Well, again, best mics, the mic you should use for whatever purpose, right? Whatever one sounds best. But these are widely used for miking a lot of instruments, but you can also use them for vocals too.
Anytime I've recorded my guitar in a studio, it's
Boom.
been through an SM57 right next to my speaker.
Yeah.
Which that's actually something that we're already through microphones pretty much, except for we
more.
go through bidirectional.
Well, this is just actually the predecessor that started it all, right? Because we wanted, does anything say rugged and dynamic, right? Like we don't want to
cupping the
drop
mic,
Eleanor
you can cup
here.
that mic all you want.
Well, actually, no, because it still works the same, right? If you cup the back here, You have, again, it's still got some vending on the front, but you've effectively done the same negating.
If that's the newer version of it, I don't know, but there is one made specifically so that it looks like a regular mic, but it doesn't require those air vents in order to be directional.
so I've seen
musicians that want to cut mics.
I've seen some of this form where they've got the front face, and you'll notice there aren't any vents in the back.
They'll hold it
just
like
solid chrome back, and then those mics, right, are more like broadcasting radio mics. You can cup those, hold those. They don't have the vents in the back, but if you do see the vents, and it is an actual.
Well, there's even ones with the
microphone
vents
manufacturer,
just
that's
there to
for it.
trick the heavy metal musicians that want to pretend that you're Des Fafara and you're not.
Well, don't worry. If you've got the Shure Super 55 Deluxe, trust me, you want to let that functionality
Yes.
ride.
Yeah.
They designed a great microphone. Let it be what it is.
And if you are one of those metal musicians, there is always a chance for you to change and stop. You don't have to stop the metal, okay? You can still bring.
I
the
love metal, guys. I love metal,
Yeah.
but y'all know what you're like. You're insufferable, and you know it.
Yeah, coming from a metal
I know
guy,
that because I'm that way
yes,
too.
Yes, and I have worked with metal bands in the past that have done that specific thing, and they're like, "We're not getting any vocals." I'm like, "I can't do anything about this guy screwing up how he's holding the microphone or this person."
Why is that feeding back? You
Well, it's
know
because
why it's feeding back. I told
you need to stop
100
cupping
times.
it. I keep repeating it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's just my style, man. I think it sounds cool when you cup
Right,
it. It's
it
all
does
like,
sound cool. Well, the reason it doesn't sound cool is because it
Like-
cups your sound.
yeah.
Well, you know what?
Looks
But
cool.
it is to be said in defense of all hip hop artists who have ever done it right, and the litany of cesspool of those who have done it wrong.
Yes.
You'll notice they don't quite cup the mic that same way. though.
What-
They give it
No. I'm just saying.
a little bit more than they should.
The fact is, it is tools, not rules. And so, if you know what you're doing, you can use that sound
Correct.
correctly. The
Yes.
reason we know you don't know what you're doing is when you're the reason feedback happens.
Yes.
If you cause feedback, you don't know what you're doing.
And then they go,
because-
I like that feedback, man. It sounds cool.
Nah,
Well, then you should go
bro.
do noise music. 'Cause that's where that's appropriate.
Bingo. Yeah. That's going to go on to a next really important topic when it comes to microphones is something you were already hitting on when you were talking about how close you are to a mic. We need to talk about microphone placement. So first, I want to talk about placement for non-electric instruments. So we're talking about horns, pianos, drums. Non-electric instruments or acoustic guitars. How are you going to microphone those? What do you place those microphones?
What do you say
to?
first?
Let's jump off on some horns. I love me a good funk section, sax,
Me too.
trombone, trumpet. Right
Yeah.
when you've got that, it really depends on the sound you want. I'm not gonna lie. He just got me. I heard burnt in my left ear, and I thought something was coming through the door. Y'all just witnessed my ninja instinct to defend myself. No, but right, if we're trying to get a horn section, if I'm trying to get that big brass, bright in your face, right, I may intentionally take probably a cardioid, right?
Okay.
So something like an SM57 or an AKG 414, I believe it is, but just one. And I'm going to set it actually intentionally closer to the trombone, but off axis, right? So it's not on axis to anybody, close proximity pointing. So if you've got your horn section lined up,
Right.
microphone closest to trombone, coming in with saxophone and trumpet being the most hardest push with air, right, furthest away, kind of blowing into it. And I'm going to have them blow that way. If I want it to sound, I'm doing some more down tempo, I want to get more room, right? I'm going to keep them off axis, but I may actually keep it closer to the once I go off axis to the highs, right? Because lows are really omnidirectional, right? So if I'm going to give more space, I don't need to be near that trombone the way I want to get its actual high end, what little bit of high end resonance it's got. I can just kind of back off to the room, and then I can just pick up whatever the trumpet and the saxophone are doing. But that's if I'm mic and placement is really about, I want to be off axis horns. Again, unless I've got enough microphones for everybody, in which case.
Let's assume you do. Right?
Okay, then
Assume you do.
I've got a cardioid or I got a supercardioid or a hypercardioid in every bell. Just that simple, right? Yep. I mean,
So that's again when you're saying in every bell, that's basically the opening and where the sound comes out naturally in a horn instrument.
Yep.
So on a saxophone, when it's curved, it's actually going to be kind of resting in here. You're going to need to put your microphone, kind of down in that.
It's right. The beauty of modern technology now, we've got some amazing microphones that right now you can clamp right onto your musician's bell. But
beyond
they're
that.
very, very small, very delicate, but they sound perfect, right? When you're trying to isolate and you're trying to get the actual root timbre of these instruments, whether it be trombone, right? Even a woodwind, right? If you got something with the bell on it, clarinet, anything like that, you're gonna get as close to that isolated and integral sound as you can get. And then
Now, it's not microphones, but it is important to note that some of the horns players that I played with started actually getting pickups for their instruments, so that way they can electrify them the same way that guitar does.
That's awesome.
no.
No, I said, yo!
Oh, but he said no.
Yeah,
That's
so
the word they're not taking
and then
this fight.
one of them was going through a Boss Katana modeling amplifier.
Yeah.
And we were just miking that, which is pretty cool, and it had a direct out option as well. And the other one was actually just going through a bass amp. That would be the trombone. Was going through a bass amp, which we...
Yo, yeah. I would love just to hear how that sounds.
Well, if you caught the Mushman at any point in the last part of my era, you would have seen it with those two.
Bro,
I think
I missed.
They saw my pedal board and they were like,
I
I could do that. You're doing, Michael. Okay, so
fumbling, don't let the
let's talk
microphone
about
fall.
drums. How are you gonna? So first of all, whenever I've been in the studio microphoning drums, I'm trying to get a microphone on every drum they've got.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. So there's a couple different types of patterns that you can use when miking a lot of different instruments, especially like ensembles. When it comes to drums, what a lot of people tend to like to do is what's called an ORTF pair, and that's where you have these, your two overhead mics, which are usually cardioid condensers, and say you have any ensemble of some type that way, and you would kind of mic them like this. If you can see with the
Well, you were pointing right at it a second ago.
So you would kind of mic them like this. That's an ORTF pair. You can kind of pull them out there a little bit. ORTF means pretty much, I don't know what ORTF means anymore, but it pretty much means it's kind of like that. Then we also have an XY pattern, which is just kind of like when they're like not an XY pattern. I keep calling it that because I'm dyslexic.
Well, almost the XY pairs are a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like that. That's a good way of doing overheads for drums. However, I have recently fallen madly in love with another style called the Glenn Johns pair. Now, Glenn John was a very famous producer. He produced a lot of really great hits throughout the 70s. He produced a good deal of Led Zeppelin albums, and he designed this setup for a Led Zeppelin album, from what I understand. The story goes is he came in and he was supposed to record the entire band and close mic all the drums with a soundboard that had a lot of channels that had been busted and he couldn't use. So he had to come up with a way of miking that entire drum kit with only 3 mics.
For non-musicians, famously, John Bonham uses like 26-inch giant bass drums, which are huge.
They're always fat drums too.
Yeah.
And these really loud, dark cymbals and everything. But so what he did was he came up with what we now call the Glenn Johns pair. Imagine that this is my drum kit, right? I got a snare right here. The Glenn Johns pair would be one cardioid condenser mic pointed directly at the bottom of the snare.
Come down
a bit, bro, so you can see in frame.
Sorry.
Yep.
On a frame note, that's your camera.
You
got to look at that frame when you're showing people stuff.
We are
right over the
with our
snare,
special
right
friend.
over the snare, pointed directly down to the center of the snare. Then another one of these off axis about, what would that be like? Not quite 45 degrees, but kind of like right over here.
30, 35.
Just above your tom and or ride cymbal, wherever that ends up being. And up, pointed down, looking across the kit, pointed directly at the hi-hat. And these have to be equidistant. So a little trick is, once you get this in place for the snare, just take a guitar cable or
any sort of
any string,
Yep.
Yeah.
tape it onto the middle of the snare, pull it up, put it there, and then
And
hold
measure.
it over. Yeah, that way you can get your diaphragms matched up to where you can make sure that they are equidistant from the center of the snare so that you don't have phasing. We'll talk about phasing
There we
later.
go. I was just going to say, what are we trying to avoid and why are
That's
we
just the
trying to
two,
be
though.
equidistant?
That's just to pick up the overhead of the kit. Then you take both of those mics, you pan one left, pan one hard right. Hard left, hard right.
Before we get into phasing,
And then wait, one more, a dynamic mic on your kick drum. That will surprisingly pick up your entire kit surprisingly well and give you a great stereo spread that sounds amazing. But if you also wanted to, one more mic on your snare so that you can get some control out of the snare. Though keep in mind that the Glenn John setup still picks up your snare pretty good and it all sits in the mix pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in love with that.
Nice. So let's move on to vocal placement for microphones and vocal microphones. So when I'm recording in the studio, the microphones that we're using right now are some of my favorites, and also Trevor's the microphone that you brought out, the Bluebird. The Bluebird, yeah.
She sings.
These SM7Bs by Shure that we're talking into right now, I love these for vocals. They're really crisp and clear.
Nice and low. Make everybody sound like Barry White.
And when it comes to vocal placement, how do you guys like to put these sort of microphones in when it's in the studio, vocal placement?
So for me, it's ironic because I'm usually doing studio recordings, right? Booth style, particularly, and it makes a difference whether what your space is going to be. Are you in a booth or are you in a room? And while it almost sounds like, well, isn't a booth a room? Is when we think of a room, think of something, think of something bigger than a closet. And if we think of booth, think of closet or smaller, right? Because if we're room, there's 1.5 million different miking things I might want to do depending on if I'm probably liking the sound of the room, right? That's probably why I'm recording there. But if we're doing booth, right, it's really straightforward, right? I even talk to my vocalist. I set my gain stage to a place where I should have 3 to 6 inches from the microphone should be the sweet spot, right?
Gotcha.
And so you're setting your gain stage that you've got 1 inch off the mic, you've got a pop filter, you've got another inch off the mic, and then you've got the closest your vocalist should ever be, and then they should still be nice and sweet with 3 inches of movement, right? Because let's be real, like if you're feeling it, you're moving your thing,
you're moving all over. Yeah.
Now your performance, the actual mechanics, the nonverbals of your performance come through in the performance because I don't need to be in this spot the whole time to actually get good vocals, right? I don't pull away, and I'm really close to my noise floor. Maybe you don't have the best microphone. Usually what that really just means is that there's more noise traveling mechanically through your device. But if we have good mic placement, right, and our signal to noise floor ratio is in our favor like we want it to be, then all that noise is always still there, but nobody ever knows you don't hear it. It's just a difference of, well, here's my transient. So if my transients are only this loud,
you're buried in with that noise too.
So you're actually hearing far more noise with my voice when I'm that far back. And the noise never left. When I got this close, the noise never left. I'm just that much more present, right? So 3 to 6 inch rule. It'll get you better results. And then I'm not gonna lie, I'm a condenser man. I have heard of some very beautiful recordings out of ribbon mics. But you have to be. Ribbons are just more delicate.
Yeah.
It takes less, right, to vibrate the material, to make the material respond. But so because of that, they also are very fragile. But so if you've got a Whitney Houston or a belty singer, a powerful singer, you probably don't want that ribbon mic. I mean, because it doesn't distort well, right?
Right.
Like you don't, you want to keep a ribbon within its.
Not only does it not distort well, about ribbon mics, you got to be very careful with them. They're very expensive, and if they're very easy to damage, you don't even need to drop them to damage. Yeah. I would never recommend, although I've done it before, but I wouldn't say do this unless you really know what you're doing. Never put a ribbon mic on anything with high transients like a snare or a kick drum. Because just the air alone of that thing being pushed can break that ribbon mic, and it is expensive as hell.
Like when we say it's a ribbon, it's no lie, right? So when we're talking about the actual transducer and material of build, a ribbon mic is exactly what it's named. The transducer is a piece of ribbon, so you can imagine how little air movement it takes to make a ribbon move. Suspended. If you give a lot of dynamic air movement, that ribbon breaks. Because it's also held that tension, right? So it's kind of not. Oh yeah. Great mics though, when used right, ribbon mics, they give really nice high-end response. Particularly, right, why do I like the Bluebird, right? Shout out to Blue for making a amazing vocal microphone. It's a creamy texture. The way that they've got it, there's a certain way that they round out the top end, and it's almost like you've got a punctuated, but on a descending curve towards 20,000 hertz. If we think about human hearing being from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. But just that, I call it an averaging effect with those attenuated points. You still get your high-end clarity, but you also get this smoothing, this creaminess to your vocals with good mic placement, right? If you keep within that 3 to 6 inch rule, you got your gain stage set properly.
This is primarily studio use. Like
studio use, right?
So when we're talking live,
well, I won't just say studio, primarily booth use, right? Because if you're miking a room, right, you might do a mid-side, type of miking, right?
Yeah.
Which is a use between a condenser and a dynamic mic on purpose, right? And we have, that's because you want to get the room, or maybe you've got a trio or duet or something. You're trying to get an actual intentional simultaneous harmony type of thing. But so it depends. But yeah, that's specifically the first one, studio booth.
Now, recording is something that like a lot of artists are going to get into in their free time that might not necessarily be live performance artists. But if you're like us, who we like to do a mix of both. I love to perform live. I got to be seen. I have to be witnessed. Everyone needs to see how good I am.
Validated. Love me.
Exactly.
Love me.
Exactly. But at the same time,
bound by my chains, and I accept them.
In my experience, I have had overwhelmingly positive receptions for my live shows because we do spend this time thinking about how it sounds for our audiences, and those are two distinctly different arenas. There's the home studio compared to playing live. Where live, you're going to use a dynamic mic in a lot of cases, like that SM58 that Mike had out a second ago.
Yep.
Honestly, pretty much almost every venue I've run into has some version of either the SM57
And or
or the 58. Excuse me. The 58 is a more common vocal mic. The 57s are what's miking my instruments when I'm live. So guitars are picked up with that.
This is that one that was broken. I fixed it last week.
Oh, nice.
Had to use some plumber's tape because this guy wouldn't stay on.
Yeah. Well.
There goes your DIY. Try that at home.
Yeah.
Actually,
we'll do an episode on soldering someday for sure.
Yeah. That's some. Those are a lot of. We got to get your microphone stand fixed.
I know.
It's well. I mean, just the angle of it cuts off my entire head when we cue out to that.
Oh,
you
really?
You can't see me at all.
Maybe we can do this.
That's
How's
better.
that?
That's a lot better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
That
There
good?
you go.
That
Yep.
good?
That's
All
good.
right.
All right. So
Mike got vendettas over there we don't know about. I mean, like, you damn cool, bro.
So why is that when you use a dynamic mic like that for live? Why do you think that sound engineers prefer to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Go. Whoever's
Say that again.
I don't know if that was for me to answer or not, but definitely.
Why do you think that sound engineers have a preference towards using those SM58s live? Why do you think they're so prevalent?
They're
those
cheap,
type of microphones.
They're durable. They sound good. They very dynamic, of course. And when you're on stage, there's a lot of frequencies bouncing around everywhere. You want to kind of try to control that as best as you can. And these are really good for that because they're dynamic cardioid puller patterns.
Yep.
They have a lot of rejection over here and a lot of pickup right here.
Bingo.
As long as you don't do this to it.
Yes. Which hopefully now that you've seen this show, you know not to do that, or when you do it, you learn how it works so you can manipulate it the way you'd like to manipulate it.
And I'll add to that, right? The big reason we see that specific style
People that want to drop
of
mics.
construction, well, I don't know if they want to drop them, but mics on the road have a rough life. Let's just admit it. If you are a live performance microphone and you are handled regularly, you are also dropped regularly, you are hit on things regularly, they are built for durability.
My SM58 has dents in it.
Right. And anybody who wants to do this, if you
But the
if you're doing a
transducer
show,
works perfectly because the body has dents in it, but that sucker is built and protected so that it can take all of that and it still gives you
if
the
you're
same
like, I'm going to
quality.
be cool and mic drop it, you better talk to that sound engineer first because they're going to send you a bill for that microphone.
Nah, bro,
when
you
it
better
breaks.
own it.
Upcoming-
There's always
speaking of
one simple rule.
upcoming sound guys. First of all, there's always a joke like the only people that drop microphones are people who never had to buy one.
What?
So therefore, if you're a sound guy and you're doing a show and you know the guy's going to drop the mic, give him one of these.
Yep.
They're about
And
$100.
do yourself a favor, also put a pop
and it'll
filter on
probably
it.
live. It'll probably
Yep,
live.
it will.
We
That's what I was
got.
thinking.
So let's pretend this is a speaker and it's in the shape of a circle, not the shape of it is.
Uh-huh.
Of what it is.
You're still raise it up. Here, I'll raise it up.
Yeah. So let's pretend this is a speaker, right? You will get drastically different sounds if you mic directly on it, a little bit off axis from the speaker, a little bit farther back. It will sound drastically different. Also, if you mic this way.
Yep.
So pretty much this is your plane of miking when it comes to miking a drum, if this was our speaker.
Now,
right?
as a guitarist who's very particular about their tone, if you want to lift that up, I'll show you. I like to microphone my guitars a little off center from there. Yeah, about right there, a little bit further to the right, actually. Right about there is where I like to microphone my guitars. So it's not picking up a lot of that low end, because I like my guitar texture. I do like it to have a little low and mid to it, But
A little bit.
what it really picks up on is the mid and high frequencies, mostly in the mix, is where you're going to find a guitar.
Yeah.
Which is why I like to mic it in that spot right there, so it doesn't pick up as much of the lows.
But that's another good point. Experiment with mic placement more so than the mics you use. I mean,
Yes.
grab whatever mics you can and then go around and just start listening to them. And experiment with how you're placing them more so than what preamp you're using or what microphone you're using, because that will drastically change the sound way more. It'll color the sound way more drastically than any preamp that you use, or, well, not so much like the different mics. Different mics will sound differently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's always that argument between, like, should you spend your money on the good preamps or should you spend your money on the good microphones? And my answer is, like, microphones, get the best ones that you can and also get the crappy ones. Who cares? You'll never know what you can get out of both.
Agreed.
But the preamp, just get a good clean one. In my opinion, don't waste your money on. I mean,
What does clean mean?
if you have, it means
Flat
it means
frequency response.
no, it means
Oh,
you can,
in your preamp.
no,
in
it
your
means
preamp.
you can turn the
Oh.
preamp up, and it helps to drastically increase the signal to noise flow ratio. It's clean. It's not noisy. You can turn it up, and you don't hear all this extra noise coming with it, because it does one job, and its job is to boost your relatively weak signal. All these things have relatively weak signals. They have to be amplified by a soundboard.
Except mine. I don't do anything weak. Fake news.
He's a liar. They are all weak signals, which is why you need the amp. And that's the one job it does. Yes, it does color the sound, but not nearly as significantly enough as the mic you use and where you put that mic. So if you're going to save the money, if you got the money to buy an expensive Avalon or Crane Song, go for it. They sound amazing. But if
Them
you're like,
Avalons, bro.
should I buy this or should I buy the great AKG 414 or 415 microphones or the Neumann U87s, get the mics.
Yeah.
Because those are way more important. And again, they will color the sound more drastically than the different mic preamp that you use.
And just to segue back to what we just spoke on, genuinely, mic placement will always maximize your signal to noise floor, right?
Yep.
If you're finding it on the market commercially, even your crappiest preamp, set well with even an average mic, but
long as it's
fantastic,
quiet.
perfect mic placement. It doesn't have to be quiet. I mean, because the ratio, if you're giving good signal, right, what it'll mean is there's a certain specific dB level of quiet you can achieve before, right, we're hearing sound, right, at certain boosts. That's all that it means. But so long as if you're doing, you know what style of music you're playing and you know where that noise floor is at, you know where your mic placement is to get it, you can really have a far less quality preamp. And even, right, not even have the highest end microphone. And no one
still
will
work.
ever know because you placed it where you need to place it.
Right.
Get
And
high signal to noise floor
on-
ratio.
I touched base on our first episode where, as far as having tools available to you, as far as content creation goes, we are literally in a pioneered age where this stuff was not that readily available 20 years ago.
Yep.
I mean, you could get it 20 years ago, but it was way more expensive and it was way more boutique
You were
and
working
specialty.
for Calamazoo
Right,
Records when they were
exactly.
getting the first ones built.
You know, well,
commercially.
this is 2002, 20 years ago. So, these microphones existed, but and this is when I started going into studios, was around 2000, 2002. Personally, you had to go into a studio that had all of this stuff
in their locker.
in their
Commercial mic
locker, as well as the digital processing power that we have now wasn't available then. A lot of things.
Computers, right? Let's
Right.
in
Yeah.
general.
Exactly.
Was it half as big, twice as fast?
Yeah.
Over and
The
over
breakthroughs that we've made in technology processing power has impacted the way that we do things on, an audio and a visual medium greatly, to where you don't have to spend $500,000 to get good quality content. You just need to know what you're doing. You need to search for how to do things, and you need to get your hands on it, and you need to practice it.
Yep.
And you can put out quality content for relatively inexpensive, and the more that you try it at home, the better you're going to get at it.
I mean, it is an
Try
endeavor.
this at home.
Or TT.
So segueing kind of on that, we one more thing that I want to talk about before we move on from microphone placement to frequency response is amplification for like that electric bass, or mic placement for the electric bass, or for a piano, on those acoustic instruments. Where are you going to put those, or an acoustic guitar?
Man, perfect example. Shout out to Western Sound Studios, which is the available recording space of Western Michigan University.
Here in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Shout out to Ian Gorman's La Luna Records as well.
Hey, shout out. But right, the Western Sound Studios recording room
I've been there. It's great.
besides being
Wow.
aesthetically beautiful, is sonically beautiful as well.
Yeah.
But right, so I had the privilege back when I was studying there to do a couple different miking setups on the, I think it's the Steinway Grand they have in there.
Yeah, that was the
Ooh,
Steinway.
yeah.
It wasn't Steinway.
The
it was
all
Steinway.
Steinway school, which isn't really all Steinway because there's like one Yamaha.
I was about to say there's one Yamaha on there somewhere. But no, so we that was actually my first time using a mid-side, and it was amazing. So with the mid-side pair, if you imagine, the room is kind
I
of
remember this one. I was here for that.
if you think about it, the room is almost shaped like a bird's eye view, top-down view of a grand piano, right?
Yeah.
You've got this square, kind of this one curve there that then flattens out, the parallel flat one, it comes in the box, right? And this good treating over there. Or it may not be curved, it may be slanted, and just in my mind, because of the little wall thing, whatever. Anyway, so we put the piano back on the wider side of the room with the piano back opening up towards the narrow side of the room. We took a mid-side, and it was actually like, well, if the keys are on this side, really kind of at an angle. The microphone is off the back, and then we walked it out, I want to say maybe 6 feet. And you've got a condenser mic that really is almost, it's not an Omni, which is the funny part about it, but that's what it's acting at. It's really miking the room, right? So you've got this condenser mic that is really directionally, it actually is a directional mic picking up front this way, but there's so much room behind it, so much bouncing happening around, right? It almost works like an Omni. And then right next to it off axis, you've got a dynamic, something like your SM57.
I want to see if I can kind of pretend.
Right, well, and it'll work, but right, so if this is my cardioid facing my instrument, and then I've got this dynamic, and you literally treat it like a shotgun. It doesn't work as accurate
It's
as
like
a
this,
shotgun.
right?
Yep. And it would just be a bigger card. We have a different front-facing cardio. Right? If this was my condenser, right, its transducer, instead of pointing up, is actually still pointing out, but it's just, usually looks like this. We're staring at the transducer.
Oh, yeah.
Out of this side of it.
Oh, you mean like that?
Right. So that's the way the transducer would actually be facing, but you're right. The mic position would look straight up and down to the eye. But yeah, no, you get amazing actual directional clarity of whatever specifically you want to highlight, which I wanted to highlight the actual mechanics of the strings themselves, like hearing the hammers hit the strings, and then you get this nice, warm, lush room around it, right? So that's the type of piano. I've also did one where we put a SM57 right over top of hammers. Oh.
No, I thought that was an RE20. No, you're right.
RE20 would be amazing to use.
We put the RE20 on the back on the lower strings, but didn't we do an ORTF pair? Were they the SM57s? I thought they were the 14s.
So that's good. So we did an ORTF pair over the hammers.
Right.
Does that make, yeah.
Right. It was like
So the RE20 would be great for low strings. I don't think I was a part of that.
No, that was one of my sessions. I don't
but
think
that would have been, that's a great low frequency.
So what ORTF is, to inform our audience, is a common stereo mic technique. It's stereo recording that uses 2 microphones to capture a single sound source. Each mic then gets panned to either side of the stereo field. So one gets panned left and one gets panned right. That's what ORTF is when they keep referring to that.
Yeah, sorry.
So to follow up on that technical portion of it, but that's what we're trying to teach people.
Well, so here we go, and the benefit specifically why the ORTF pair over hammers. The same way many young producers who probably have worked in DAW and you hear that, my high keys are on the left, or I'm sorry, my high keys on the right and my low keys on the left, and you feel this move even if you're in headphones, right? You're producing in headphones, you feel this lower keys have more predominance in your left ear. These higher keys have more predominance dynamically in your right ear. That ORTF pair is what allows us to do that, right? Because it's literally sweeping across the field, and now once you've panned them left to right in your mix, where you were playing, those strings, right, if we're talking about a piano, were legitimately that set of interval distance away from the microphone, each side. And so it almost happens mechanically, right? As we play across it, we move across our stereo field and just creates a great environment, right? It spreads our stereo field, it gives some more character across the width of it, and we can play in that mix, right? Not so much done mono right down center, not everything's competing for that same frequency space.
You can kind of like close your eyes and imagine yourself sitting in front of that piano playing it when it's panned like that too. Yeah.
There it is.
So if we're looking, and you see right now down near 20 hertz, we actually have an extra bump. The reason why I think this is such an awesome vocal microphone is because when you've got female vocalists that legitimately do not naturally have a barrel to their voicing,
Right.
that you can use microphone technique, and I'll help them when they're in the studio with me, right? So that if they're doing something airy, there's a certain distance they perform that at. But if they do this very, I'm intimate and I'm close, and it's usually softer, so they're not pushing as hard, but that little bit of hump on the bottom end adds some body to what they're doing without the vocalist needing to strain anymore or push anymore on a part that may need to be more relaxed in the throat and sung up in the upper neck area. So it works out really well.
Yeah, and that's for, kind of mid-high tenors, altos, and sopranos you're referring to, right, vocal-wise.
Well, so it's going to pick up specifically that last little bit is if you've got really, if you're a high soprano, if you're a high alto or just a soprano and above, right? Because if you're mezzo alto and below, we're working within the same normal frequency rate. Like they're usually, you've got a little bit of body within you wherever you want it from your performance. But sometimes with sopranos, right, it can really, depending on the microphone you're using, it can really, in my opinion, lose. Girth is the only word I know, but it's not like you're not making it girthy, right? You're not making it girthy, but it's like every vocal needs to have a certain amount of body. Right. And depending on when you get a certain...
got to give us some booty.
Up into the soprano range, hey, like it juicy.
Yeah.
Right, but when you get into that soprano range, you can lose some of that body, whereas when you've got a microphone like that, where it's got that little bit of attenuation down on a low frequency, they can use, again, mic placement to kind of compensate for having to strain the voice more, to try to make the voice. Because a lot of singing is muscle memory. You just know what it feels like to hit this note in this way and express it. And so when you're asking a vocalist, hey, can you give me a little bit more body? What you're literally saying is, can you physically do something else in your throat? And it's it doesn't take much different shape and throat to drastically change the sound. So it's like a vocalist may or may not be able to do that and express what they're trying to express the way they want to. But if you need that little bit of girth and body, you can just say, as an audio engineer, you can know, hey, let me have you hit that bridge part, but let me just, when you go in to do that, let me have you lean in half an inch.
For everybody at home listening, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Damien signing out for Michael Queen and Trevor Penn, a.k.a. S9 Freebird. I hate you guys. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.